covering sports for 30 years. It's one thing for an exhibition here, there, whatever, but you can't continue to be allowed to build a career without getting into the ring with fighters. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon.
But does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway.
Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional.
Stephen A. Smith blasts the announcement, insisting Jake Paul has never treated boxing with the level of commitment the sport deserves. He claims Jake's rise has relied on exhibitions and opponents who pose little challenge, from retired names to fighters long past their prime. Smith argues this trend insults boxing, and that a matchup with Anthony Joshua highlights just how poorly the sport is being handled right now overall.
Can't continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers.
Step, he can't continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers that punch like pillows.
This, to me, is everything that's wrong with boxing. It's a money play, nothing wrong. I don't begrudge Anthony Joshua getting 50 million quid for an easy night's work. That's fantastic returns. Most people would take it. But from the boxing world, Jake Paul is now a professional fighter. Whether we categorise him as a YouTuber or not, he's licensed to fight, which means that the governing body should be suggesting that this is not a fight that possibly they should be looking to sanction.
Yeah.
But they will, because the sanctioning fees will be enormous. Anthony Joshua will not lose his legacy like some people are suggesting, because no one will remember it in 2 or 3 years' time. If he embarrasses himself in there, they'll remember it. If he goes in and knocks him out in 30 seconds flat, or turns it into a little bit more of a sort of Jake LaMotta raging bull, holding him up for a few rounds and then knocking him out, then people will forgive it. He'll get a big bag of money, which most people in the world would take, and move on. And then we'll see if he fights anybody meaningful in the year. I mean, it is like sport has become. And what I got my head around on Saturday night was the entertainment value of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. The fighting of itself, I could be all pious about it, but the entertainment industry is so prevalent in sport now. This is entertainment. This is going to have hundreds of millions of people watching it. Of course. And Anthony Joshua gets paid, and Jake Paul hopefully gets flattened.
Simon, I know the money's there, but does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway. But I think it does get damaged.
Even if it's an exhibition fight, which it might well be.
Well, then what's the jeopardy in that? If it's an exhibition fight, which it shouldn't be, if it's a proper fight, then Jake Paul is going to get demolished.
Simon Jordan raised serious concerns about the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, saying the matchup reveals deeper issues spreading throughout boxing landscape. He argues that commercial motives now dominate the sport, placing profits ahead of integrity and pushing fighters and promoters to prioritize publicity and gain rather than competitive boxing challenges. Jordan warns that when boxing shifts from genuine competition to pure spectacle, the sport begins losing the respect it accumulated over many decades. He cautions fans and figures to understand that matchups like this, being profitable, can create dangerous standards for young fighters and distort how the public views boxing. Jordan adds that this matchup reflects a growing trend where financial motivations outweigh the true athletic challenge involved. He argues the event is driven more by headlines, social media attention, and ticket sales than by sporting competition. According to Jordan, using a star like Anthony Joshua to elevate someone who has not faced opposition damages the credibility of boxing and misleads audiences about competition. He says turning a championship-level athlete into a prop within a commercialized event diminishes the achievements of fighters who have devoted their lives to boxing and respect through dedication.
Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight 2-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that was when he boxed Usyk. That means he's got to be fight fit on point, because his last fight was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now he basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, and get yourself ready for fight. It's not tiddlywinks. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull. So as long as it's not a push and a pull, and don't put me down and don't touch me in the build up to this fight. Remember when McGregor and Mayweather, they had this little side deal, don't touch me in the build up to this. If this is a real legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, because you said that before when we spoke about it being a proper fight or not. And Eddie Hearn and Paul's promoter, Nakisa Bidarian, have both said in the last couple of days it will be a proper fight. And now you've heard the details, 8 rounds, 3 minutes around, 10-ounce gloves. Do you believe it when they say that it's going to be a proper fight?
I do believe it because AJ is involved, and I think AJ would struggle to. He's going to take enough flack over this, but again, it's money talk. So I think AJ will struggle because it's an Owen situation. If he goes in there, Jake Paul lasted the distance. What does he tell you about AJ? Apart from he's just earned an extra 15 million quid. If he goes there and struggles with Jake Paul, then what do you say about AJ? Your heydays are well and truly over. If he goes in there and knocks him out, then I'll say that's to be expected. So the glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, right, I've got rid of this kid. I think it's very brave of Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got...
Johnny Nelson speaks out, calling the matchup completely wild and genuinely dangerous. He explains that this is nothing like a standard crossover bout. It is a real fight with serious stakes and real physical risk. Nelson respects Jake Paul's courage, yet questions the logic behind stepping in with an established heavyweight champion. He says the shock value comes from how serious this contest truly is. This is no exhibition, and any mistake could have real consequences. Nelson's reaction reflects a mix of curiosity, excitement, and worry spreading to the boxing world. He goes on to discuss Jake Paul's unusual rise as a competitor. Although Paul has shown skill and confidence in earlier fights, Nelson emphasizes that none of his past opponents compare to Joshua. Seeing Jake's bravery is impressive, but also alarming when considering the danger involved in challenging a world-class heavyweight.
Where Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, is, but I'm not going to say he's coming into his prime because he had some great wins earlier on in his career before he lost to Usyk twice. And by the way, when he did lose to Usyk, the last one was a split decision. It was a pretty close fight. So now this fight is matched, and I just want to look at the tail of the tape. Now, looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. Now, come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pounds versus 252 pounds. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are including at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost 1. AJ has had 28 fights, and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute...
Tony Jeff takes a practical stance, saying that in boxing, anything is possible. He explains that training, preparation, and mindset can sometimes balance things out, even when there's a noticeable gap in experience or age. Jeff mentions that Jake is younger than Joshua, which might give him an edge in stamina and recovery. But he also admits that Paul is still not on Joshua's technical level. Even so, Jeff notes that Jake has made major progress. And with the right strategy and dedication, surprising results can happen, which is part of what makes boxing unpredictable. Jeffer also talks about Jake Paul's work ethic, pointing out that he has shown impressive commitment while preparing for tougher opponents. He says that even though Paul's skill set doesn't reach Joshua's level, his focus on training and learning deserves recognition. Jeffrey believes the gap between them is smaller than some critics suggest, arguing that discipline, preparation, and mental sharpness can reduce physical differences. This viewpoint adds depth to the discussion, recognizing Paul's growth while still being realistic about the difficult challenge ahead.
That it takes for Jake Paul to do this, as well as for Joshua. You know, this isn't Joshua's first time doing a spoof fight. He fought Francis. That was a spoof fight. Francis had never won boxing before, but we understood he has fought before. It was one of those things where when you got through it, like coming into the front side, I'm sure Anthony Joshua trained plenty hard for it. But coming out the back, he probably realized I didn't need to train for that at all. That was fun. That was a good time. I got to hear him call my names. I got to go out there. I got to be light on my feet. I got to lay on these combinations and then cut an interview and pump my hands over my shoulders like I accomplished something. What dreams are made of. And so Joshua did one of those fights. It was with Francis, and this is a completely different kind of that type of fight, but it's still that fight nonetheless. Jake Paul has abilities to win this fight. A lot of them involved moral victories. A lot of them involved getting out of the first round. And a lot of them would involve getting out of the first 2 rounds and haven't been knocked down yet. One would be getting out of the 3rd round. You've only been on the canvas once and you got up to your feet, you shook it off and you're ready to keep going. Like, these things are all victories, but the fight that it's going to happen, I think it's a big deal for Jake Paul. I think it's a big deal for everybody involved. I think it's a big deal that Francis looks at that fight and realizes, oh, these things make sense. These things that make dollars, they make sense. That's his business. This was his opportunity that he missed out on. And now Joshua's going to have a lot of fun. And overall, I see the fight being one-sided. And people keep saying, well, slow down. Wait till you hear what all of the rules under exhibition clause mean. As long as...
Chael Sonnen argues that Jake Paul's critics will finally see the true level of competition he faces when stepping into the ring with a proven professional around the world for many observers. Sonnen notes that the matchup will reveal whether Paul's earlier success was boosted by carefully selected opponents or if he genuinely fits within serious competitive boxing. He believed this fight will act as a reality check, offering clarity to fans, analysts, and the boxing world. Sonnen describes the event as a moment for judging the legitimacy of Paul's career and its wider influence on views of crossover boxing. He adds that this matchup is a major test not only for Jake Paul, but for how the public interprets the sport. Sonnen emphasizes that facing a world-class heavyweight will place Paul under scrutiny from seasoned boxing experts and veteran fighters. The spotlight will show whether Paul's past wins reflect real ability or simply the lower standard of his earlier opposition. Sonnen says such scrutiny will help the sport by reinforcing expectations for those seeking professional recognition, ensuring that conversations are based on genuine performance rather than marketing narratives.
So-called real fighters, but not for a long, long time. Chavez is a decade or so past when he was best, and Tyson had been retired 19 years and hadn't been, even when he was still an active fighter, hadn't been at his best over the last decade of his career. So they were guys with big names, but not threats. And the other fighters that he's faced have been a collection of either non-combat athletes, MMA fighters who've decided to come into boxing or had very limited experience in boxing. And then, a couple of guys in boxing that didn't have a lot of experience who were boxers, but had been off, for a long time. A couple of guys you never heard of before he fought those guys, and those guys you'll never hear of again. Of course, the fight against Tommy Fury, which I know he lost, but it was like a split decision, as my recollection says, and it was awfully close. And for my perspective is, whatever you think about it, Jake Paul certainly has gotten better since he fought Tommy Fury. He's certainly gotten better over the last number of fights. Now, is he at an elite world-class level? Probably not yet. He may never get to that level, but so you got to give him props. He's taken on a guy that I spend part of my morning talking to different boxing matchmakers, people I've known for decades in this business, who have vast experience of building fighters and moving fighters and developing them, and they know a lot better than you or me what they're looking at. And to a person, they were like, they don't understand why Jake took this fight, because they think it's, one person used the word of decapitation. So he's going to be a monstrous underdog against a massive puncher.
Dan Raphael offers a viewpoint centered on Jake Paul's noticeable development. He He points out that Paul has improved as a fighter since facing Tommy Fury, showing sharper technique, stronger stamina, and clearer tactical awareness. However, Rafael stresses that even with this progress, Paul is still far below Anthony Joshua's elite standard. He highlights that the difference between a rising professional and an established heavyweight champion is enormous, urging fans to keep expectations realistic. Rafael's breakdown acknowledges Paul's commitment while giving an honest assessment of the difficult challenge ahead, emphasizing the long road required to reach genuine world-class ability.
Fake Paul is not a step in the direction of becoming world champion again. There's many people who could box. He's not going to make that kind of money. So let's just be honest with anybody else. So let's just be straight up honest about it. He's doing it all for the money. It's all about the money. I did say a year ago when he got splattered by Daniel Dubois that he's finished in boxing, he needs to retire. That's just my opinion. That's just my truth. I think he's done in heavyweight boxing at an elite competitive level. So that makes sense. I've been vindicated. He's now fighting Fake Paul in what will be a massive mismatch. If this is correct and it's 10-ounce gloves in the professional boxing rules, 8 3-minute rounds, it's not going to go 2 rounds, is it? It shouldn't do. It shouldn't last a round. But we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? It's hard to get your head around. It's hard to know what to say about this. AJ's obviously excited about it, about making some serious bunts. And Jake Paul's telling us that he's going to shut all the haters up by jumping in there with AJ. So what is actually going off? We're not going to know, are we, until the fight actually, till the first bell goes. We're not going to know what's actually behind all this. And we can't start throwing accusations of any sort of skullduggery going off, because we've got to take it at face value. It's not an exhibition, so nothing's pre-scripted. This is a professional boxing match that you can make bets on. So it's got to be a real fight. And if AJ goes in there with them little 10-ounce gloves on and throws the Ngannou 1-2 down the middle, I'm talking about the one that rendered Ngannou unconscious and almost snapped his leg. And Ngannou's a decent fighter in the cage. You know, he's a good MMA fighter. And you saw him, he took Tyson Fury, what did he take him, 8, 9, was it 10 rounds? Can't remember how long it was, but he took him the distance and lost a close decision. So he's quite capable, but AJ's a big punching heavyweight.
Dan Rafael offers a viewpoint centered on Jake Paul's noticeable development. He points out that Paul has improved as a fighter since facing Tommy Fury, showing sharper technique, stronger stamina, and clearer tactical awareness. However, Rafael stresses that even with this progress, Paul is still far below Anthony Joshua's elite standard. He highlights that the difference between a rising professional and an established heavyweight champion is enormous, urging fans to keep expectations realistic. Rafael's breakdown acknowledges Paul's commitment while giving an honest assessment of the difficult challenge ahead, emphasizing the long road required to reach genuine world-class ability.
I think that is how that would ultimately go, though.
What's your level of interest, Mr. Connor Burks? What do you think about this? How do you think people will receive this?
Mr. Connor Burks, yeah, I am very interested in it. I'm already seeing the tweets and Instagram posts online that people definitely want to see this fight happen if Jake Paul is going to fight anyone. I can't imagine a fight that would garner more interest. It's a legitimate boxer in Anthony Joshua who has massive wins on his resume. He's much bigger than Jake Paul. He is a global superstar, and also he's going to be a massive favorite in it. To me, it just makes sense from a standpoint of if you're Jake Paul and you somehow pull this off and you beat Anthony Joshua, you silence all the doubters out there. You beat a guy in Anthony Joshua that you're not supposed to beat. And then if you're someone that doesn't like Jake Paul, you want to tune in to see him get knocked out, you put it on Netflix. To me, it makes a ton of sense from a visibility standpoint, from getting the most eyes on it. Obviously, you're never going to top the Tyson thing just because of who Mike Tyson is, but right now, especially on short notice.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned. Until next time,